Howdy y'all, Fuzzy Biker here in the Fuzzy Biker Garage. It's a beautiful fall day and I've got about 500 miles on that motorcycle behind us now. And I've adjusted the valves and I've changed the oil and we're going to go have some fun on that. I've got about 190, 200 miles of riding planned for the day. I've got 90 miles of twisty curvy road. Then we're going to do a whole mess of interstate. Now with 500 miles I want to test that out. And then we're going to do a little more twisty curvy road. So got a good plan. We'll talk about the fuel mileage because I've got to get a tank of gas right now, and we're going to see what kind of numbers we get for that. We're going to talk more about that seat. I'm learning to like that seat, and we'll talk more about how the bike handles and just some of its quirks and things like that. But it's a gorgeous day. Let's get going. Wahoo! Hey, we have made our way to Turin, Iowa. I'm going to give you a tour of Turin right quick. The little dot on the map, probably 100 people might live in this town. Big old hills over here, the Luss Hills of Iowa, over yonder, over that way. Then over there is the Missouri floodplains, and the Missouri River is over that way. So Turin is known for having the second oldest human remains ever found in Iowa. There was a family, I think it was 3 children and a woman that had been interned here. I think they said between 3,000 and 7,000 years ago. Since then they've found an older set of remains over by Des Moines, I believe. But so this town has that distinction. There's also a area here where they've dug up a bunch of mastodon bones and neat things like that. But we're not here to talk about that, are we? Let's talk about this little hot rod. I have just been having a ball on this thing. First off, let's talk fuel mileage. I said I needed to get some gas when I left town, and I got 56 miles a gallon on my tank of gas yesterday. We will not be getting that kind of gas mileage on this tank of gas, and you're going to find out why here in just a minute. I want to go right to the handling. I want to right to the handling. On my way here, I said we're going to have about 90 miles. Well, we took a different route because I thought of some very rough roads. West of Erwin, Iowa, there's about 6 or 8 miles of really bad road. And then from Highway 59 through Erling, all the way to Dunlap, Iowa, that road there, it's about 20 miles, 18, 20 miles. It's a bear. And I took that road on purpose. And what did I learn? Well, those roads are rough. I learned that right away. This bike actually didn't do so bad. What I learned was the tires stayed planted. The bike held its line really well. Even though it was a rough ride, I do not believe it was as rough as my Triumph T120, or I'm sorry, T100 would have been. I've had that bike on that road before and just swore it off. On this bike, I would do it again. I don't think it's a problem. Like I said, it held its line. It never, you know, gave me any sideways motions, or it just did what it was supposed to do. The wheels and tires stayed planted. So I attribute that possibly to the Showa front suspension with the upside down forks. There's less mass here to move up and down so it can act quicker. And then on the back, I would say, you know, the bike has a lot of weight bias towards the rear end, and we've got about 4 inches of suspension on the back. That's 102 millimeters, I believe. Now that I've got these shocks adjusted, and by the way, if you get one of these, all the ones I've seen so far, the shocks are in the lowest setting. If you get one of these, make sure you get the suspension adjusted, because that made a whole bunch of difference. Anyway, I think that's why the suspension works so well. The bike performed admirably. I was very impressed. I could tell it was a bad road. I knew it was a bad road riding. You know, I could feel it was a rough road for sure. But it never felt insecure or unsafe. And the other thing, I'll got to throw this in. I looked down and I was going, well, let's just say well over 70. So I must have been having fun, right? I mean, it was working well enough that happened. So then after that, I came into the Luss Hills area. And Luss Hills has these sweeping curves and, you know, upsy and downsies, and just very pretty. And the bike, you know, loads of torque, did very well. I felt very comfortable with the bike. I never lacked for power. I felt like it just performed well. I think this is kind of the kind of road that these bikes are made for. These beautiful sweeping 2-lane blacktops, you know, and for this part of Iowa, this thing is a real treat, just a real treat. So I mentioned the engine rating, so it's a 648 cc. I think it's 47 horsepower with 39 foot-pounds of torque, 39 foot-pounds of torque. That's 53 newton meters. Parallel twin, air and oil cooled. Loads of what you need to keep going. And it's got this 6-speed transmission. Over the years, I've said how good this 6-speed is on the Interceptor and the Continental GT. I'm going to extend that right to this bike. It has just been a dream. Every shift, I mean, it's smooth, it's predictable, it always seems to be in the right gear. You do have to watch you do have to fuel it a little better, and that's another thing. I'm on a roll, guys. The fueling on this bike is very good. They have done a lot of work to get that fueling very smooth, and I noticed it. I mean, it was just incredibly responsive. So excellent engine, great transmission, beautiful clutch, by the way. And then the fueling works very well. I love it. I just absolutely love it. I did change the oil in this a couple days ago, and we adjusted the valves in the top end too. There should be a video out on that already. But anyway, what a ball, what a ball. Next thing to talk about, probably seating position. And that's something important because I started riding this, I was always scooting back, and that's really not where you need to be in that seat. What I found is, I've got something like 600 miles on this bike already. What I found is if I slide forward and sit upright, it's really quite a comfortable seat. And also what I found is when you get on the twistier roads, you just don't even think about the seat because you're moving around enough, and it works very well. You know, it's wide at the back, but it's narrow at the front. So I would say so far the seat's a good option. I do like the foot pegs. I was having trouble reaching the brakes and the shifter with my big winter boots, but with these boots I haven't had any trouble at all. Although I might try to adjust this up a little bit if that's possible. I'll look at that. But as far as the shifter goes, zero problem. I actually love that a lot. It's been a great ride. It's been we are near the interstate. That's my next thing. I've got, what did I say, about 600 miles on this. I want to get on the interstate and see how she runs on the interstate. That's something I've been dying to find out because that's one of the reasons I bought this bike. I intend to do a lot of 600 and 700 mile days on this next year, and I want to see how this thing performs on the old interstate highway. So let's go do that. Catch up with you in a minute. Wahoo! Wow, what a windy day. We've made our way back to the mighty metropolis of Marnie, Iowa, just down the road from Baxter Cycle over yonder. Quite a ride with this bike. Did a Mesa interstate just now. Got more fuel. Let's see, where should we start? Well, let's just start with the looks. I'm so impressed with those. I just got fuel and some guy came up and asked me what it is, you know, and said it was a good looking bike. It's something I've heard from several people. Now I know it's a new bike, but I do believe it is good looking. And ironically, this is the plain color, the monocolor version, you know. So yesterday I rode this thing very conservatively, and the tank of gas I put in this morning, I got 56 miles a gallon, I believe. After that tank, I did a bunch of back roading, did a lot of 70 mile an hour. Then I got on the interstate and did about 80 miles of interstate, I think, something like that. And a lot of that was 80, 85, keeping up with traffic, you know. And I just put some gas in and I got 45 miles a gallon, so that's quite a difference. That means if I were to interstate with it, I'd have to plan on getting fuel at least every 150 miles, and that's you know, that's every 2 hours, I suppose. How does it perform? Let's talk about, we talked about the 2-lane blacktop stuff earlier. Let's talk about pushing it around the garage. Very simple. I was amazed at how easy it pushed around the garage. It's a 531 pound, that's 241 kilogram bike, and it pushed around the garage just fine. I didn't have any trouble with that at all. The next thing would be handling in a parking lot or at low speeds. So that means like 0 to 5 miles an hour, 0 to 5 or 6 miles an hour. I call this a Reiki bike. And for those of us that are in the bike world and somebody says that, we know what that means. That means it's low speed. You got to really pay attention to the bars. You got to, you know, it needs attention to go slow. Another friend of mine was calling it lazy. Another friend was calling it wallowy, you know. And that just means that at those lower speeds, you just have to watch it a little bit. Keep your hands on the bar and pay a little bit of attention. It's not dangerous or anything, and especially on this bike. I've seen a lot of bikes that are far more Reiki than this one. The next thing would be, we talked about the 2-lane blacktops already. You know, around town, this thing's a dream, by the way. Let's go there real quick. Around town, I have had it's just been a ball. The little towns I've been through, you know, 35, 40 miles an hour. So we talked about the 2-lane blacktop already earlier, and I told you my experience with that, especially with the suspension. The next thing would be the interstate, and that's the big one, because that's one of the big reasons I bought this motorcycle, was I want to do a lot of interstate, you know, a lot of high mile days. I think it did really well. It's got the 4-inch longer, it's got the 1500 millimeter 59-inch wheelbase. This is more stable. It feels more stable. It's you don't have to give it as much attention going down the road. So I think this is going to make a good bike in that sense. It was windy. The wind really didn't bother me at all. The long wheelbase and the rakiness kind of helps the bike in that sense. And by the way, if you're going to do a lot of interstate, you definitely need a windshield like this or something like it. The downfall of this motorcycle, as far as doing interstate traveling and long rides, are the fuel tank. You know, if I'm getting 56 miles a gallon on 2-lane blacktops, I can go quite a ways on a tank of 200 miles. It's a 3.9 gallon tank. So, but at 45 miles a gallon, you'd want to fuel at least every 150 miles. I think I'd already talked about that. But boy, I have just had a ball on this thing today. We will see what we can do about mileage for tomorrow. I'd like to keep this going. I think we're close to 650 or 700 miles, something like that. And I want to get 1,000 miles on this the next couple of days. So stay tuned, my friends. Stay tuned. And if you're interested in something like this, get yourself down here to Marnie, Iowa, the mighty metropolis of Marnie, Iowa. Get over here to Baxter Cycle. Go to baxtercycle.com. Those guys can help you out with a newer used Royal Enfield, Triumph, or classic British bike of any type. They also got the gear, accessories, coats like this wonderful cardon law jacket, or those Tourmaster gloves over yonder. They've got it all. They've got it all. Baxtercycle.com. Tell them Fuzzy Biker sent you. Now, get out there and ride, my friends. I am Wahoo. Howdy, y'all. Quick addendum to the video. 200-mile ride on this hot rod today, or 197, something like that. Just a beautiful day out there. I'd like to thank y'all for going along with me, putting up with this nonsense that I do. It's been a lot of fun. And tomorrow we are going to try to put, I think we're at 700 miles on right now. I'm going to try to put 300 on it tomorrow. We'll just see. Starting to get used to the seat, so you never know. Might be possible. Hey, life is good. Get out there and ride. Wahoo!